Hello and welcome everybody to this global Azure session of Give Me Cloud Talks. This session is why should you be managing cloud resource hygiene in your cloud environment? So I look forward to this talk. This is something that we talk about a lot: cloud hygiene, cloud resilience. All of those things are all very hot topics around architecting your environment. So look forward to my friend Elkhan Yusubov, MVP and MCT, for providing this session, and I appreciate your participation. I want to give a quick just a quick thank you to all the organizers of Global Azure and all of the user group counterparts across the globe that are making this for the community, by the community event happen over the next 3 days. So I will turn it over to you, Elkhan, and have a great session.
Thank you, Dwayne. And hello, everyone. Thank you, Dwayne, for organizing this event with Give Me Cloud Talks. It's always big pleasure to be here talking and sharing the knowledge with everyone, especially during these global Azure days, right? Which we don't have many actually. So this is actually my presentation on Global Azure for the fourth year in a row, and I'm very truly happy to be part of this global event. Again, thank you everyone for joining this event, and we will kickstart our session with the title as you see on the slide. Why should you be managing cloud resource hygiene in your environment? What are the reasons why you wanna put your energy into that and get benefit out of it? So to kickstart the session, first let me give a little bit introduction about myself. Maybe you're already familiar with that, but the blurb and everything is there on the right side. I run and I'm the founder of the cloudmarathoner.com. And what this site is about helping everyone to start their cloud journey and then get upskilled so that you can learn these technologies in a way that it's helping you to do your work more efficiently and plus get cloud ready in your next career opportunity. In addition to that, I'm a Microsoft MVP on Azure, and I'm also blogging on the cloudmarathoner.com. However, I'm because of the social media and everything, I'm sharing most of the posts and everything on the social channels, and you can find that on the Twitter, as you see on the left side, and as well as the LinkedIn, where you just type my name, and I hope that you can find me. So let's dive into the session here to the why this cloud hygiene is important. But before doing that, I want to spend few seconds or a minute or so to talk about the place where I'm working. This is a compact infographic about the TRX Solutions. It's a company where I'm delivering the mission critical cloud enabled solutions to our customers with our teams of engineers and architects. And I'm happy to lead those brilliant folk in my team. We have also strong partnership with CSPs, with cloud solution providers, and our company does support development of local communities in the area. So if you are in the area, DMV area here in DC, Maryland, Virginia, so you are welcome to check out our website. If you look for some opportunities for employment, especially in the there are some remote positions that are available. So please check the openings and reach back if you have any questions. So now let's focus on the session, right? So why cloud hygiene is important? Because without knowing why we are doing this and what's the important, it's hard to guess, what you are going to get out of it. And before doing that, let me mention that this session is live and you have a way to put your comment there, okay? Meaning that uh, i'm going to I'm going to look my one of the my, one pair of my eye is going to monitor the comment section. So if you have any comment, any question at any time when you are watching my session, just put that question there, and in a timely manner on every other slide I will be checking that to make sure that your questions are answered and you get most out of this session. Okay, so why cloud hygiene? Why you should spend time and energy in understanding this? And what's the importance? First of all, the cloud resource hygiene is a critical for the security, cost optimization, and overall efficiency of your cloud accounts and subscriptions, right? So depending on what you are running, if it's Azure, we are talking about Azure subscriptions. There are several reasons why maintaining good cloud resource hygiene is important. And let's start with the first one, the security. Proper resource hygiene helps protect your cloud environment from potential security threats. And by regularly reviewing and managing your cloud resources, you can identify and mitigate any security vulnerabilities, such as misconfigured permissions, publicly exposed data, or outdated software versions. This activity of reviewing and maintaining will reduce the risk of unauthorized access, data breaches, or other security incidents that are, very you are very familiar from the news and everything that's going on in the world. Next is cost optimization. Efficiently managing your cloud resources can lead to significant cost savings, right? So, for example, unused or underutilized resources can and will bring some costs, right? So it will incur some unnecessary expenses in your budget. So regularly reviewing and optimizing your resources allow you to identify idle or unnecessary resources so you can resize or terminate them. And you can allocate your cloud budget more efficiently by having this cost optimization. So this helps to avoid those wasteful spending and optimize your cloud costs more meaningfully, more thoughtfully. Next is performance and scalability. Maintaining good resource hygiene ensures that your cloud resources are properly organized and configured, promoting better performance and scalability. By keeping an organized structure and naming conventions, it becomes easier to locate, manage, and monitor your resources. Properly configuring resources like load balancers, auto-scaling groups, or database replicas can enhance the performance and scalability of your applications. Next is compliance and governance. Many industries have regulatory and compliance requirements that organizations to must follow to when storing and processing data in the cloud. By practicing good resource hygiene, you can ensure that your cloud environment aligns with the necessary regulations and internal governance policies of your organization. This includes maintaining proper access controls, auditing logs, and enforcing security best practices in your environment. Next is, and this is very important, is disaster recovery and business continuity. Cloud resource hygiene plays very crucial role in disaster recovery and business continuity planning. By regularly backing up critical data and implementing redundancy measures, such as you can protect your resources against potential failures or disruptions. Properly managing and documenting your cloud resources will simplify the recovery process and enable you to continue operations quickly in the event of an incident. And finally, there is also one that's not listed here, but it's about collaboration and team efficiency. So, if you have well maintained cloud resources, then it will facilitate collaboration and enhance team efficiency in your organization. When resources are organized, properly labeled, and documented, it becomes easier for team members to step in and to understand and work with them in an easier way. This will reduce the confusion, it will streamline the collaboration, and it will enable effective resource sharing among your team members. So that said, this is just why we want to have cloud hygiene in our environment. But second thing is, okay, what are the actionable steps and what are the things that you want to avoid while trying to achieve this cloud hygiene? In order to cover that, I'm going to cover following points. First of all is you want to know what are the hidden configuration risks and how you can, discover them. Next is you want to have a environment where you can define your resources as a code, so you can have a repeatable process that you can rely, and human prone errors are not going to be, you can eliminate the human prone errors from the process. Next is DevSecOps principles. What are they? How to implement them in your environment, and getting into the know. And next one is, again, as we mentioned, it's about policies and governance, what benefits they bring, and plus how you can use them, how you can enable them in a certain cloud environment. And finally, we'll look into some short demos just to get some practical understanding in terms of how it is, how you can achieve those good benefits of cloud hygiene. I hope you are excited and you are ready to continue. So let's dive and start with the first one. So first one is hidden configuration risks. So everyone knows that manual configuration risk across any cloud vendors is a problem, right? So there are always some configuration risk when you are doing that in a manual way, and that's true across any cloud environment. And when we speak about that, first, it's all about having inconsistent configuration that would lead to some issues. So that's also in some uh, in some cases equal to the poor and inconsistent configuration. So manual configurations of cloud resources can lead to configuration errors, which could have a negative impact on the performance of your cloud workloads. Moreover, the manual updates can result in repeating errors and mistakes. And even if the updates work well, uh, what always annoys me about manual updates is that they are very rarely consistent, which creates pain down the road in maintaining those systems. Next is the security risks. These risks are coming due to misconfigurations or a lack of strong security measures. Example of a storage provisioning and maintenance is known to everybody about the leaks from the S3 bucket or from the storage accounts whenever they are not properly secured and there was no oversight uh, over the environment in terms of resource hygiene, because it's very possible that certain cloud storage accounts, they have been provisioned and used during the lifetime of the project or process, and then for some reason, if you don't have a resource hygiene, they will just left there, and it may left there without proper security configurations, which will let malicious factors to dig into that, discover, and then utilize the data there, which is going to put your organization and your processes at risk. Next one is this hidden configuration. It's a vendor lock-in. Manual configurations of cloud resources may lead to vendor lock-ins. And what that means is if you decide to switch cloud vendors, you will have to manually transfer all that data and all that knowledge and all that configuration to a new cloud environment, which is going to be different. And because of lack of automation, you will have to spend enormous enormous chunk of your day just to get that started and going. Next is cost overruns. So this manually doing the configuration of cloud resources can lead to cost overruns, as it is difficult to accurately estimate the costs involved in creating, configuring, and managing cloud resources. And finally, lack of automation. With manual configurations, you miss out the benefits of automation such as faster deployments, improved scalability, and flexible resource management. And that said, next slide is going to we are going to consider defining resource as a code, how it will help you to achieve better uh, better state in managing your resources. So let's dive into that. So defining resources as code. First of all, let's look at the tools that can help you in defining the resource as a code. And I will consider handful of them in this presentation, but there might be more that you are familiar with. However, getting to know these main tools in the cloud environments will be helpful for you. First of all is, of course, I'm going to start with Azure Bicep. It's a tool that I'm very familiar with, and this is a new domain-specific language for provisioning the Azure resources. And as you know, the purpose of Azure Bicep is to simplify the authoring experience with a cleaner syntax and more code reuse. The new language aims to make it easy to write infrastructure as a code for developers and DevOps and cloud engineers that typically create those ARM templates, which is Azure Resource Manager templates, to provision and maintain Azure infrastructure. And I'm going to talk more about Azure Bicep down the road, and I'm going to share you with some video courses and some resources where you can get up to speed with Azure Bicep in managing your cloud resources, and plus, making sure that you can have a proper hygiene of those cloud resources. Next is Terraform. Terraform enables infrastructure automation for provisioning, compliance, and management of many cloud environments, data centers, and services. With Terraform, you learn one syntax and one structure that gets applied to the supported cloud providers like Microsoft Azure, AWS, and others. So this is a tool you want to consider if your team is actually have to maintain similar infrastructure across different clouds, and that's actually a requirement from the customer. Then uh, you can always uh, that approach will minimize the learning curve, at least for the team members to get familiar with the structure. However, you will still have this learning curve for understanding each individual cloud resource in the cloud environment where they are running. For example, you would have to understand the configuration details of S3 bucket for AWS environment, and you would have to understand the cloud storage and storage account related service details if you are doing that for the Microsoft Azure environment. So that learning curve is still there. However, syntax wise, at least you would use and learn one syntax. That will be in a Terraform. In the case of Terraform, it's going to be more reliable on the providers that Terraform is supporting. Next is Ansible, and you can use it to provision the underlying infrastructure of your environment, virtualized hosts and hypervisors, network devices, and bare metal servers. It can also install services, add compute hosts, and provision resources, services, and applications inside of your cloud environment. Next is CDK. AWS CDK is known as a cloud development kit. It's a framework developed by AWS that will allow you to define and provision cloud infrastructure in code and deploy it through AWS CloudFormation. Currently, you can use that of course, on AWS environment, and as well as there's a CDK for GCP environment. And finally, I want to mention Pulumi. That's another actor in this uh, area where where while you can use both Terraform and Pulumi, they are declarative tools. Pulumi uses the general purpose imperative languages. And what does it mean, like imperative languages? It means that Terraform automatically generates the infrastructure based on the code that's written, while Pulumi requires the user to write a code that specifically describes the infrastructure. And that's the biggest change difference there. Okay, that's it. Because I mentioned a lot about Azure Bicep, let's look into what Azure Bicep is in terms of if you are familiar with Azure infrastructure. That graphic would be, very revealing. So as you see here in this graphic, Bicep language is an abstraction layer that's built over the ARM templates. And whatever you can do in ARM templates, you can also do in Bicep language. And all resource types, API versions, and properties valid in an ARM template are equally valid in Azure Bicep language. So Azure ARM template is a templating engine. So keep that in mind. It's a JSON representation of the resources. While you are declaring that, you are using JSON declaration. However, with Bicep language, it is the way to define those Azure resources and their configurations uh, like a code. So it will look and feel like a code, and I will show you example later on in the demo. All right, that said, let's look at declaring resource as infrastructure as a code, or why does declaring cloud resources as a code will minimize the security threats and improve the security compliance posture of your organization. So first of all, consistency and repeatability, right? That's really important. And uh, declaring these cloud resources as a code refers to the using this programming language or configuration file to define and provision cloud resources such as virtual machines, storage accounts, and networks, or any other cloud resource. By doing this, organizations can benefit from the security following security advantages. So the consistency and repeatability is the first one that comes to mind. And declaring your cloud resource as a code will enable your organization to maintain a consistent and repeatable infrastructure across multiple environments. This will reduce the risk of human errors and configuration drift, which can lead to security vulnerabilities. Next, we have, of course, the important thing is automation. With infrastructure as a code, you enable your organization to automate the provisioning, configuration, and management of the cloud resources in the environment where they are running. This will reduce the need for manual interventions, which can introduce security risk because of the because whenever we involve the human being and we would like to do the things manually, there's always steps that we may miss or we can misconfigure. By automating that and introducing infrastructure as a code, we just eliminate that risk from the picture. Next is, of course, security testing, and by following the IAC, which is infrastructure as a code tools, you can help to identify those security configurations and vulnerabilities in a way that you can include those checks for security by checking the things like default passwords, open network ports, and insecure storage configurations in the code and identifying them earlier in the stage before actually issue happens. Next, we have version control, and with version control, as you know, it's a concept that comes from software development discipline, and by using these version control tools, organization can track changes made to their cloud infrastructure over time, which will enable them, or it will enable your team to quickly revert a previous known good state in the event of a security incident or performance issues. Next is, of course, compliance, right? With declaring cloud resources as code, it will help you, your team, and organization to achieve and maintain compliance with security standards and regulations such as SOC 2, HIPAA, or PCI DSS. By automating the deployment of security controls and configurations, your team and your organization can more easily demonstrate their compliance postures to auditors and have peace of mind. So, declaring cloud resources as code has many benefits, but these are the main five, I would say, concept that you want to keep in mind. And if you don't have that in your organization yet, I would strongly advocate to bring them and get the benefits, and as well as reduce your risk exposure by having your infrastructure as a code in place to help your organization. Next is Devsecops principles. That's another very important piece that we need to keep in mind. And what are the before looking into them, let's look at what are the modern DevSecOps principles that organizations should invest and adopt. But before looking into that, let me check the chat here just to make sure that we everything is fine and we if there's any question I can address. Okay, it looks like we can continue from where we left. So With DevSecOps, it's a philosophy, right? It's about how we can bring the development, security, and operations team together in a way that it will set a practice that integrates those teams in a way that it will emphasize the collaboration and communication between development, security, and operation teams. And that in turn will ensure that security is a key consideration throughout the software development cycle. So let's look at some modern DevSecOps principles that your team and your organization should invest and adopt. First of all, it's a shift left, right? So this is more of a concept where DevSecOps emphasizes the shifting security testing and controls to the left or earlier in the development lifecycle or earlier in the software development lifecycle. This will enable your team to identify and address security vulnerabilities earlier in the development process, which will reduce the cost and impact of the remediation. So this is also synonym with the phrase called fail fast and often, and that would basically mean that you don't spend forever building the perfect and secure app and expect it work during the production day, but you rather build it quickly and create unit tests, and you fail it if it is not compliant as soon as possible, so that you have enough time uh, to in, to modify or to improve your security testing and plus the the compliance of your application earlier in the development stage of the product. Next one is automation, right? So automation, of course, is a key principle that's coming with the DevSecOps. It enables your teams to quickly and consistently test, deploy, and manage code while ensuring that security controls are in place. So, automation also enables teams to identify security vulnerabilities in a real time and respond to them more quickly. Next one, we have continuous integration and continuous deployment. It's a software development approach, as you know, and it will emphasize that frequent and automated testing and deployment of code changes is part of the process, and it needs to be part of the process. With CI/CD, you require that your security testing and controls are integrated into the pipeline, and you enable that would enable your teams to quickly identify and address security vulnerabilities on each phase of your development lifecycle. Next one is security as a code, right? So security as a code is all about bringing your security controls and measures and process in a way that you can declare them and they are part of the release process. And you can define and manage those security controls, policies, and procedures in much more easier and streamlined way. So this will enable your team or your organization to manage security in a consistent and repeatable way, reducing the risk of human error. Next one is continuous collaboration and communication, and that's what DevSecOps also emphasizes. It's also coming with the DevOps principles. It's all about emphasizing and empowering the collaboration and communication between development, security, and operations teams that would ensure that security is integrated into every aspect of the software development lifecycle and that teams work together to identify and address those security vulnerabilities. Then we have continuous, as a part of the process, we have continuous improvement and DevSecOps. Oops, let me back it up here a little bit. So continuous improvement is also part of this DevSecOps principles. And with DevSecOps, it requires a continuous improvement mindset. It's more about not the, it's a mindset and process where you want to train your team to have that culture in place. And teams that you are part of it or managing this process should consistently assess and improve their security practices, processes, and tools to ensure that they are keeping up with the latest threats and best practices that are emerging in the industry. So, and part of this continuous improvement is At the end of each iteration, based on which development framework your team is using, you can have these retrospectives, or you can have these briefs where you can speak about what went wrong, what went good, and how you can improve toward addressing the shortcomings of the process where your team experienced the most issues. All right. Next is, of course, policies and governance. So, what are the policies and governance that drive organizations toward this adoption of secure infrastructure as a code approach? So, to do that, as you know, infrastructure as a code, or IAC, it's a process of managing and provisioning infrastructure resources using machine readable configuration files rather than manually configuring individual servers and cloud resources. So with this approach of IAC, you enable your team and your organization to manage the infrastructure more efficiently, reliably, and at scale. However, it's also essential to ensure that infrastructure is secure, and that's where secure infrastructure as code approach comes into play. So let's look at several policies and governance components that will drive those organizational adoption of secure infrastructure in your environment and organization. First of all is, of course, it's about security compliance. And when we speak about compliance, as you know, as we mentioned, there are different industry compliance standards like SOC 2, HIPAA is some of them, and HIPAA is big in healthcare industry here at the United States. So this will require your organization, uh, those standards will require your organization to demonstrate that they have implemented adequate security measures to protect sensitive data. And using secure infrastructure as a code approach will help your team and your organization to achieve security compliance by enabling you to enforce security policies and best practices in a standardized and automated way. Part of part of the policies and governance is to have the DevOps practices, which is also in line with the Devsecops principle. So I'm not going to cover it in detail as we already mentioned that. Next one is risk management. So your organization would need to identify and mitigate those risks to their infrastructure and data. Infrastructure as a code approach will provide your organization with greater visibility and control over their infrastructure, making it easier to identify and address security vulnerabilities. So, secure infrastructure as code will help, again, your team and your project to reduce those risks by ensuring that security measures are built into the infrastructure from the start. And of course, the one of the recommended way is to have this secured as a code to be built into your process of releasing the new product or new software. So next one is continuous monitoring, right? So this is very important part, and it's a critical aspect of maintaining the security of your organization's infrastructure too. With this infrastructure as a code approach of and having this continuous monitoring, you will get your security built into the infrastructure from the start, and it can be continuously monitored for security vulnerabilities. So with security with secure infrastructure as code approach, your organization provides the ability to automate security testing and validation, ensuring that security measures are maintained and tested over time with good visibility into the process. Next is compliance auditing, right? So this auditing is always there if you are doing some if you are having some regulatory environment where your products and your services needs to be compliant with. With infrastructure as a code approach, your audit trails can be automatically generated and maintained, making it easier to demonstrate compliance with security policies and regulations. So, secure infrastructure as code approach will provide your organization with the ability to audit their infrastructure for security vulnerabilities and demonstrate that they have implemented appropriate security measures. So, all in all, when we are talking about policies and governance, these are the main points where you want to rely on and get those benefits into your organization. Next, let's look into some ways how you can actually get this infrastructure as a code or security as a code into your environment and projects. So one way, if you are using Azure cloud environment, there are uh, two Azure Bicep courses that have been, that are currently available, and I'm sharing them here on the screen, and I'll put them into the chat. Let me bring that URL. Give me a few seconds here. So, by getting your team and your organization engineers familiar with the tools of infrastructure as a code, of course, you are going to help them in a big way to help. I'm not able to put the link here. I'll put that for the moderator, hopefully to share that later on, but I will share these links later. So if you just go and type on the LinkedIn platform for these names of the courses, which is one of them is the first one that you see is building infrastructure as code with Azure Bicep Part 1, and second one is about Azure Bicep First Look. So I hope you can, benefit from these courses. Next is let's look at how your organization can manage cloud resources. So no matter how small or big is your project, taking time to think about through the approach of how to organize your digital assets is very important task that you should give enough thought about. In Microsoft Azure, you would need a you would need to consider a couple of options while trying to make the decision. For example, you would need to consider factors like the scope of your project. Do you want to manage your project under the resource groups, or it's much bigger and you would have to have a management group on top of it? So based on the scope, is the resource group, is the subscription, or are we talking about management group or a root tenant of the organization? You would have to apply those policies and securities based on the scope where they are located. In our case, to as a kind of, if you speak about the concrete services to achieve that, we are talking about the global Azure policies that you can apply, and you can also have Azure blueprints to help you in the process. And with the policies, if you look at Azure policies, you would see that you have Azure policy initiatives where you can find a starting point for enforcement compliance, let's say HIPAA compliance on the environment where you are running those workloads, and get heads up in, and get some, I would say, template to start with where you can modify them according to your organizational and as well as project needs that you need to have in place. So when we talk about that resources, we are talking about resource governance, management scopes, infrastructure as a code management options, and of course, how you can introduce the management of this through modules, through Azure Container Registry, or through template specs. They are all there to help you to manage those code in a way that will bring those SDL, software development lifecycle best practices into your process. Okay, that said, let's next I will show you a quick demo where we'll get some understanding in terms of how you can enforce those controls and those audits into the process environment where you are doing some Azure work. And to do that, I'm going to demonstrate this tag governance that's kind of easy to start and learn in the process. And to do that, I'm going to share with you a repo, GitHub repo, where you can actually access this. So to access that code, let me bring that. So as you see here, let me make it. So this is, if you go to the repo that I have here, so you would have to navigate to the to this URL. It's basically github.com, and then it's same as my Twitter handle, Lyusubov, And then you just scroll down, and here you would see that you have this Learn Bicep GitHub. So just click on it. And then once you are in that repo, you have a number of places, but the one that I'm going to share with you is under the samples. And in these samples, there's a sample number 19, deploy tagging and policies to the subscription. And it has a number of tags and the way how you can deploy it. If you want to look into the scripts, you can always look into the subfolder where those definitions of the Azure policies are defined. Here under this folder, you can find them. And then, of course, you would go ahead and uh, deploy them all together by using, for example, here we have, let me see, you would use Azure demos. Yes, you can use this one to deploy those tags, and you can basically have Azure CLI to do that. Because of the short time that we have, I wouldn't be able to run this. It takes some time to actually deploy all these policies and get them working. But once you deploy, you would have this good oversight and audit over the resources, which ones are compliant, which ones are not. You'll have this good view over what's going on in your environment. So again, um, this is the report that you need to look into. These are the links that you can run, but due to time shortage, I wouldn't be able to run and show because it takes some time to load them and make them operational. So once you run them and everything is in place, that would be at least your first stage in a way that you would be able to manage your resources in more compliant way and easier to maintain going forward. Next, let me see if there are any questions in the studio so we can address them. And I see that there isn't, I don't see any questions at the moment. So that said, let's move forward and conclude our session for today. So what we have covered, first we start with why you need cloud hygiene, and we learn about the importance of that concept and of that process in our organization and projects. Then we dived into understanding the hidden configuration risk and what are the costs of having them. Then we talked about how we can define those resources as a code that will help us in maintaining the cloud hygiene in our cloud environment by identifying and managing them more easily. Then we looked at Devsecops principles, how they can help in our process to strengthen our development processes and as well as uh, product release process in a way that it is more secure and it's more streamlined and it has all the benefits of automation, modern automation. Next, we looked at policies and governance that we should have in place if we are doing a work that requires regulatory compliance and standards needs to be uh, implemented and audited on the environment where we run those workloads for our organization or for our customers. And finally, we looked at very small demo in terms of how you can get started and implement parts of this infrastructure as a code using the declarations in Azure Bicep language, and as well as how it will look like in your environment if you give it a green light and start using infrastructure as a code. Finally, in terms of getting to know all these resources, you have this uh, Learn Bicep GitHub on the left side that you can use. This is the one here. Let me make sure we have. So we have on the left side here, Learn Bicep GitHub that you can use. And then if you want to get started with the videos on LinkedIn platform, you can look into Azure Bicep first look. Then you can get more information, sorry, about Bicep project by visiting by visiting this URL here. And finally, if you want to get more resources about learning Azure Bicep, you can always rely on this community driven awesome Azure Bicep repo that has a number of useful references and good learning resources to get started. That said, thank you everyone for joining this session. It was really pleasure to be being online here and presenting to all of you. Thank you for the organizers, especially Dwayne and this Give Me Cloud Talks for having Global Azure this year on the in the United States as one of the organizations who are doing this. Thank you. And again, if you want to get in touch with me, I'm Cloud Marathoner, aka Cloud Marathoner or Elhan. You can always reach out to me on LinkedIn or on any other social media. And back to you, Dwayne.
Thank you, Elhan, and thanks for your great session. Really appreciate it. And thanks everybody that's attending live or is viewing this on the YouTube channel. If you are looking for this, this is out on YouTube. I guess if you want to find this later on, if you're watching this live, you can go to global gimme cloud talks.github.io, and these sessions will be still linked after the session, and it'll bring you there, or go to the YouTube channel, Captain Hyperscaler, for any of the events that we're actually hosting. Some of the sessions are being hosted on other platforms, and including Brian Gorman is having a session going on right now. He's doing a serverless workshop, so he's doing one this morning as well as one this afternoon. So get over and check that out. Otherwise, thanks everybody. Thank you again, Elhan, and we'll see you in your next session on Saturday, I believe. So
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you, Dwayne, for having me. And I hope everybody can have a time on Saturday to come and join live session on Saturday again. It's going to be first part of the day. And thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.
Yep. Thank you very much. Have a great day.